Soybean PreEmerge herbicides. Should you use one and why?
Well, most of the market in the United States has moved away from soybean pre's because, first of all, we had Pursuit. And so everybody was using Pursuit post-emerge. We were wiping out everything in the fields. It was the cleanest bean fields we'd ever seen back in the 90s. All of a sudden, there was a weed called tall water hemp that came into our area, and it was out there the whole time. There just weren't too many of them, but we found out that Pursuit and that family of chemistry was not controlling them. So now we had a whole bunch of weeds all of a sudden in our fields. We thought, oh no, what are we going to do now? Well, just about that time, Roundup Ready beans came out. So everybody said, oh, no problem. Ditch the Pursuit, go all Roundup. Well, now we're running into that same situation again, using one product as your total means of control. It's just not a good idea, and we've got some weeds that are resistant or tolerant to Roundup.
Yep, so last summer, Darren and I took a little trip down to Mississippi and Arkansas just to see what Roundup Resistance was all about, and I'm telling you, I've never seen mare's tail like that, and there were a lot of other weeds that Roundup just was not controlling. Palmer pigweed and Italian ryegrass, and I mean, there were a bunch of weeds that it's just not doing the trick anymore. So even in our area, we've got problems with common ragweed. We have lamb's quarters. We have water hemp, wild buckwheat. So there are a lot of weeds that Roundup just isn't getting anymore. And if this hasn't happened to you on your farm yet, well, guess what? It's coming. So whether that happens in 2010 or it's 2012, 2015, it's coming at some point. So we just want to make you aware of that, first of all. Second thing is, a lot of these soybean pre-emerge herbicides, because Roundup's so cheap, I mean, let's face it, you can get generic Roundup for $3, and even name brand Roundup is $4 or less right now. So it doesn't cost much for Roundup. All the soybean pre's have to be very reasonably priced. Treflan, you can get old Treflan for $3 an acre. I mean, the new Kixor or Sharpen you can get for probably $3.50, $4 an acre. I mean, there are a lot of very reasonably priced alternatives.
Well, you talk about some of these products and some of the different weeds that many farmers are having trouble with, and every time I hear this list of weeds, I think, why are we having troubles with this? Why are we having troubles with that? We've got all kinds of products for the last 40 years that have been able to kill those weeds completely in fields. And what's happened is we've completely moved away from using some different chemistries that are safe and available for you. So we wanted to focus on some of those pre-emerge products in soybeans that can wipe out all these weeds that we're having trouble with, so we can continue using Roundup post-emerge, or if you're more comfortable with it, you can go back to using conventional herbicides to wipe out your weeds.
All right, well, let's start with that Kixor. We're going to talk about that just a little bit later on today. A product that Kixor, this new Kixor, is compared to a lot of times is Valor, and we've been using Valor a lot on our farm over the last few years. It's a great product. We like it because it's very good on broadleaves. It's got some activity on grass, but its strongest suit is broadleaves. Well, that's what we really need in that soybean crop, because post-emerge, we don't have a lot of great broadleaf options, especially when Roundup isn't doing the same job that it used to.
The thing I like about it is it's very flexible. It doesn't have a wide crop rotation window. You can rotate to just about anything in about 21 days. So if you needed to replant later on, you could come back in with another crop. It's not a big issue. So it's a real flexible product for me. Also, it can be used as a burn down product or a pre-emerge product. It's not a post product at all. If your crop is up even a little bit, if that ground's cracking and those cotyledon leaves are about to pop out, it will kill them. So you need to put it on before the crop is out of the ground. So you can use it as a burn down and spray it either with your planter or right before or after planting, or you can put it out a little bit ahead of time if you want to just get that job out of the way and get it done.
Now, I mentioned Treflan a little earlier, and the old products like Treflan, Sonalan, and Prowl, the old yellows, the things that make everything nice and yellow out there, they're actually still very viable products. Just last year, we used a fair amount of Prowl on our farm too, because it does a great job on grass. So we've got some problem grasses in a few fields, and then it is pretty decent on lamb's quarters, pigweed, even Russian thistle. So some of the weeds we were having problems with, those yellows, they fit nice and they just don't cost much money.
Okay, well, here's the problem. A lot of guys haven't used those for a number of years, so they forget how to use them, and I hope you're not falling in that situation. So pay attention here. With Treflan, that has to be incorporated
and Sonalan
instantly. So if you're using Treflan or Sonalan, work them in right away. Put some kind of application kit right on your tillage tool so you can work them in as you're going. That's the greatest way to save time and an extra trip across the field. With Prowl, that can be used no-till, or it could be lightly incorporated, but we saw some guys run into problems this year by putting it on after they planted the crop. That's not the way to use Prowl. You need to put it on early in the season. For us in our area, we're typically planting soybeans May 1st to May 15th. So we'll try to get all that Prowl put on sometime between April 1st and April 15th. So it's out there and it has time to move down in the soil a little bit so there isn't that concentrated layer on the surface of the soil that could potentially damage stems.
Also keep in mind that Treflan, Sonaline, and Prowl are root inhibitors. So in other words, you have to get that herbicide not just into the soil, but it has to get below where that seed is at. So if the seed is an inch deep, the herbicide has to be below an inch deep in order to stop those roots because it's a root inhibitor. So it's a little different than some of the other pre's that we have.
Now, one of the other pre's that we don't hear a lot of talk about anymore because it is kind of old, it's a little long in the tooth, is Scentcore. And Scentcore is a relative to atrazine, but it's a fantastic pre-emerge product for soybeans, and there's a broad spectrum of small-seeded broadleaf weeds and even a little bit of grass and large-seeded broadleaf weeds that it will control.
Well, one product that I kind of like is Authority Assist. What it is, it's a combination of Authority and Pursuit. Just make sure you're using a real low rate. We don't want to have a lot of Pursuit out there because we get a little worried about carryover. But as long as you're using like a half rate, you should be in pretty good shape and you'll get decent weed control on a lot of different weeds, like wild buckwheat in particular. That's one in our area that Roundup just doesn't control.
So we discussed a lot of different names here, a lot of different choices for soybean pre-emerge products. The good thing is most of them have been out for a long time, so they've got a proven track record of how they perform in your fields, and your agronomist probably knows them very well, so we can make good recommendations to control all these weeds you're having trouble with at a very low cost.
Yeah, the important thing is just use one of the pre's. Get something out there. It's going to help you. You're going to get better yields when you use a pre. It's going to make your post-emerge herbicide weed control a lot easier. So all the way around, it's a good choice. Just do it on your farm.
Well, using all of these pre's, unfortunately, is not going to do a fantastic job on our Weed of the Week, but we'll show you what is coming up later in the show.